Hey, Gen Mex, I hope that you know that there was the big presidential election last month in Mexico and that we have a new president, the first female president in Mexico. You may not know that there were another 20,000 positions across the country that were part of that election cycle. And a number of things might have an impact on foreigners living in Mexico. So I am really excited. That's what we're going to be talking about today. And I have someone who understands all of this. And he is going to tell us, he's going to answer all of the questions that I can come up with about how this election cycle could have an impact on foreigners living in Mexico. So I have here Armando Rios Piter. Let me take my lower third off. And he was a senator at the federal level. He was a presidential candidate. So this is a high-powered guy. Very excited to have him on the channel. Thank you to Actinver, which is one of the sponsors of this channel, for connecting us and providing us with this time. I'll talk more about Actinver later on in the video. But let's get Armando up on screen. And just first, let's have him kind of introduce himself and give a little bit of background so you know who we are talking to.
Hi, Brighton. Nice to meet you. Nice to be with you guys. And I was in politics for like 25 years. I used to be, as you said, a senator. I used to be congressman. I've had a couple of positions at the cabinet in the federal and at the state level. I'm from the state of Guerrero, which is a very famous one. Since we have Acapulco in there, so it's a pleasure for me to be with you and, of course, to talk about Mexican politics and to talk about how this will impact especially those friends of us who are coming from the United States and probably from other places of the world.
Great. Thank you so much for being here. And before I get into really the details of how the impacts will be, and I've got all sorts of questions, as I mentioned, I do want to know a little bit about the election process in Mexico. Things are different. Most of the people watching are probably from the United States, but a lot from Canada. I don't know a lot about Canadian elections, but I know a lot about elections in the U.S. where every state has a different system and things are very confusing. Can you tell us a little bit about just how the elections went in Mexico?
Well, yes. Last June the 2nd, we had the biggest election ever here in the country. We elected, of course, the first female president, as you just said, but we also elected 9 governors of 9 of our home states. We elected the whole Congress, not only 128 senators, but also 500 congressmen at the federal level. And we have 32 local Congress, and we elected 31 of those 32. So it was a very big one. And we have municipalities. We not only have the state level, we also have like counties, let's say, for those who are in the United States. And we call them here municipalities, which is the local level of government. We elected 2,056 of those. So the way it works in Mexico is that one Sunday, which was the 2nd of June, we had this big election, which is organized by the National Institute of Elections, which is an autonomous organization, of course, an autonomous institution we have here. And the way it works is that citizens get organized in like 170,000 places where people go and vote. And it is the citizens, the ones who count the votes. Of course, there are several representatives for the parties. We have like 6 parties which were running right now. We had 7 parties which were running right now in 2 main coalitions and 1 party which ran in a single way. So it was a very big participation. We have 100 million people who are in the list for who are allowed to vote, and we have 60% of people who went to vote on that day. So it was a very important day for us. 60 million people went to express the way they wanted our government to be. So right now we have a new Congress at federal level. We have 31 new local Congress, and we have a new female president. The first one we have in Mexico, of course, but in the hemisphere, let's say in North America, not only in the United States and Canada, we have the very first female who will be ruling the country, which is Claudia Sheinbaum.
Yes, I am very excited. It seemed like we were going to have a female presidenta. Either way, most likely.
That was going to happen a couple of years ago, but didn't happen.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm excited to be living in a country with a female president. So that's exciting. So what about the election security? Mexico is known to have some corruption going on in government levels or across the board. Can we feel that this was a secure election?
Well, I would say that the way we organize the day of the election is I would say that it's a very good way of organizing elections. We've been working on this for more than 30 years, and people feel comfortable about the way this is organized. As I was saying, citizens participate the whole day analyzing the way the election works. They are the ones who count the votes, and the parties are like a part of the process. But the very main core of the whole process is it is the citizens. No, but of course we have like some critics that have made a loud voice, especially on the opposition parties, because we have like these programs which where people receive help from on behalf of the government, no, and these critics say that there's like some way that the government generates like some kind of pressure on some of the people who get these benefits. But I would say that with a 60% of the participation right now, we can feel comfortable on the way that this happened, no? And well, we already have new authorities. They will be coming in office. First, the Congress will be coming in office in the 1st of September. Then the President, Claudia Sheinbaum, will be coming to office in the 1st of October. So I think, of course, there's always an opportunity of make things better. But on regarding the election, I think there will be no more bigger conflict about critics on how this worked.
Yeah, and I have read that the Mexican election system is very secure. It is an independent process. Everybody votes on one day, and it's a Sunday, which is great because the United States, if we vote on a Tuesday, if you're voting in person, it can be hard for people who are working to get there. So it's a very good system. And as I understand, it's the first time that Mexico allowed Mexican citizens living outside the country to vote, or they improved that system. So a lot of Mexicans living in the United States voted. I will have another video, if I don't already have it, about voting as a U.S. citizen, voting when you're living in Mexico. So be sure, I want folks to participate in democracy wherever they live. So thank you for that overview of the election process. Now let's get into how this election will impact foreigners living in Mexico. So,
well,
go ahead. Yeah.
Yep. I think we are now watching a closer relationship in between the United States and Mexico. Of course, in the economics, we are getting more and more intertwined. No, right now Mexico is the first associate to the United States. We are much more up than China used to be, and right now more than Canada. Well, more than $800 million that go across the border from here to there and from there to here, exports and imports. So we are getting more and more intertwined. As I was saying, we are closer in an economic and financial way. So I think that's good news. We've been talking about nearshoring for the last years. A lot of investments from China and from Asia have come to Mexico. Of course, because not only of closeness, territorial closeness, but also because we have this treaty, which used to be NAFTA, right now is the Mexico, United States, and Canada treaty, where commerce has been growing and growing for the last 3 decades. So I would say that this will continue with this government. This occurred during the first phase of the fourth transformation as Morena, which is the ruling party, and where Claudia Sheinbaum participates. So this has been a main course for our working with the United States. So I think this will continue. Of course, we have challenges with the United States. We have the challenge of migration. We have the challenge of drugs with fentanyl, which is causing a lot of damage right now in the United States, but also here in Mexico because of the violence that is generated because of the weapons that are coming from the United States. So I would say that we have a very interesting common course, which will continue to be a way of working together. I think a lot of Americans and of course Canadians also who living here participate in this economic dynamics. I think this will be more and more profound right now that we have a change in the geopolitical dynamics with China rising and with the United States trying to compete, and of course generating a closer way of seeing the hemisphere, the North American hemisphere. So I think this will continue, which is it's a situation that goes, I think, more and more even beyond the governments. It's like our economics are very intertwined. Our business are more and more intertwined. We have good people like you who are seeing the benefits of living in Mexico and who are helping us to evolve in different ways. And of course, we have a lot of Mexicans in there who are also working for making Canada and the United States more and more prosperous.
Yes, thank you so much. And I want to get a little bit more into the presidential elections in the United States, which are upcoming, and how that could impact things. But I want to hold that for now. And you mentioned the fourth transformation, and that's something I've heard a lot, and that's a Morena thing. But what really is the fourth transformation?
Well, that's the way they call this arrival of the left party, which is Morena, to power. They worked a lot for coming to power. They lost in 2006, in 2012, but then after different problems we had about corruption, about violence, López Obrador, who was a candidate in this 2006 and 2012, he came to power, and they have this this way of trying to make history, saying that they are part of a fourth historical change in Mexico. The first one they say was the independence. The second one they say was the Guerra de Reforma, the War of Reform, where Benito Juárez was one of the main leaders, and the third one was the revolution. So they think they sell that they are this fourth historical change. No, we'll see. Right now they want power again. No, they're trying to make some changes. There are some guys who critique them. There are some of them who support them. They won with a lot of votes. So let's see. Let's hope that they continue to make changes for the good of Mexico and, of course, for the good of the hemisphere, North American hemisphere.
Yeah, and I think, it seems the Morena Party is, I hate to use the word socialist because it has such a bad connotation in the United States, but it is a party that favors the less well-off versus the more well-off. Is that a fair way to describe them?
Yeah, that's a good way to see it because, poorness is a huge problem we have here. The inequality of income distribution is also a very big problem. You who live here, you know that we have a few people who have a lot of income and a lot of people who have a little bit of it. So of course, this left party, which is called Morena, has this main flag, and they've been pushing, especially social programs, which were part of the critics during the elections, but they are trying to push forward that the Mexican budget, the public budget, goes to those places where there's poverty. They're especially attending the southern part of the country, where there's a lot of indigenous people who live in a bad situation. And that's their main speech, that's their main flag, and that's why they say they're changing history.
Okay, so let's get into something that's related to money, not related to necessarily the less well off in Mexico, but the exchange rate. The exchange rate changed a lot unexpectedly. We have another video with Bernardo, who you work with, talking about the exchange rate after the election. So things have changed a lot. Do you see anything economically? I don't know. None of us have a crystal ball where we can predict the future. But if you have any thoughts on where you think, financially things might be going in the next, year or something like that under this new administration, but same party.
Well, let's say that we've had these kind of shifts not only in 2024, but these kind of shifts in the rate, the peso dollar rate has been present not only in this time but also in 2018, 2012, 2006. Every time before the election and after the election, we have these kind of shifts. Of course, we had a very good situation of the peso rate, which was called the super peso. No, we had a rate below 17 pesos for dollar, a very good situation for the last two years. And now it has come up. Right now, the team, the analysis team, the economic analysis team in Actinver is placing the dollar at the end of the year, probably 18.50, no? But some of the people here in Mexico feel comfortable with this, especially the ones who are exporting. Of course, those who are coming from the United States or Canada as tourists, they feel that this rate is pretty much more comfortable for them. And of course, this helps the economic activity. Every time we talk about the rates, some will feel comfortable, especially the ones who export. Those who import will feel less comfortable, but we'll see. This happens, this volatility before the elections and after elections, as we've been analyzing, happens especially because people are trying to understand how the new government will behave, which will be their priorities, how the cabinet is going to be formed, which is the main actions they will have. So of course, the ones who invest try to be aware that they generate expectations, and these expectations get fulfilled as time passes. No, so we are going to be analyzing the way these weeks, these next months occur. We have a main date, which will be the 1st of September. The 1st of September, as I already said, the new Congress comes to office. There will be some discussions, important discussions regarding the judicial power, regarding re-election, regarding probably about new programs, social programs that will come into the constitutions. So we will have an important discussions in between the 1st of September and the 1st of October. There's a lot of, some feel uncomfortable about these changes in the judicial power. So we'll be trying to analyze how politics works, how these signals start to diminish the volatility or the uncertainty. And we'll be watching in the 1st of October, the new government coming to office, Claudia Sheinbaum being the first female president in our history. And of course, watching how the main signals and the priorities are attended at Congress and, of course, regarding the political actors.
It's answers like that that make me so excited to bring people like Armando onto the show to share with you their knowledge. And this is a great time to talk about Actinver. If you're looking for to make investments in Mexico, to be storing your money in pesos instead of dollars, or actually probably to have a mix of them is the best place to be. I can highly recommend Actinver. They're the bank that I've been working with, and they are sponsoring this program, and it is where Armando works and Bernardo. It is a great place where you can get access to investment advisors who really understand things like this, the things that we don't understand as foreigners. So there are great interest rates right now available on bond funds, CDs. There's a whole Mexican stock exchange if you want to participate in that. So I wanted to kind of put that out there. There'll be a link down below that'll take you over to the Actinver website if you're interested in learning more about Actinver and working with them. And they, of course, support this show. But let's get back. I want to actually go back further to the election process. The president can only serve one term. Senators can only serve one term, correct? And
right now, the senators can be reelected for a second term. So right now is the very first time that the senators from the past Congress will be working 6 more years. This is the very first time in the history. And congressmen can also be reelected. They weren't reelected for the very next period until this time, especially senators. So we are working with these things. But now in Congress, they will be discussing to take re-election out. So we'll see how this works in Congress.
Yeah, that's interesting. It seems like it gives you a little more continuity. But the one thing that you talked about, you mentioned, Claudia, she's got a different background in terms of energy policy. And so I'm wondering if you have, pull out your crystal ball. She has said that she's going to continue following AMLO's policies, which are very fossil fuel oriented. I know one of the constitutional amendments mentions ensuring that electricity is the cheapest it can possibly be, which just seems to me, reading that, says fossil fuel will continue. But Claudia's background is in science. She understands climate. What do you think is going to happen there?
Well, her background is a very interesting one towards new energies. She used to be the Minister for Sustainability and Ecology here in the city of Mexico, just before she was elected into office, first as in the municipality of Tlalpan, and then she became the jefa de gobierno, the governor for the city of Mexico, which is the biggest one we have here in the country. So she when she was in charge of the ecology and sustainability, she worked a lot understanding these possibilities for new energies. In her old campaign, she talked about new energies. She in difference of the way López Obrador did, he talked in positive ways about new energies. So I feel comfortable about she being president and working towards new energies. No, I think this will happen. Of course, if she does what she said during the campaign, which I think she will be doing, especially because we need to grow, we need to generate competitive energies, not only healthy energies, but also competitive energies, no? For being part of the Mexico, United States, and Canadian treaty and generating more productive and sustainable ways to compete in all the world. These energies will be very, very important, and I think she'll be towards this kind of speech and this kind of actions.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Definitely in La Paz, the air is not super clean. I'm sure lots of places in Mexico because the energy is not super clean. So that is going to have an impact on foreigners. Definitely. So, and I've got a video about that too. But what about things, and we got to go relatively quickly here, the impact of the fiscal requirements for visas? They're tied to minimum wage. Is minimum wage going to continue going up? What's going on there?
Well, I don't know pretty much how this will impact the cost of the visas and all this. I don't think there will be several changes in the very first year. In 2024, I think the fiscal policies and the way these government papers are charged, they won't have any changes. But as you are talking right now, there's this proposal of tying the minimum wage to the inflation. No, probably this won't happen in the very first part of the legislative process. It is not one of the main priorities we've heard about, but this will be part of the discussion with the businessmen, with the workers, and let's see how this happens. Probably this won't happen in 2024, since right now it is not the main priority, but probably will be part of the discussion in 2025. Let's see.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. So let's hop over to safety. Definitely, Lopez Obrador talked about hugs, not guns. I don't know if it necessarily worked as well as he had hoped. Do we see anything changing in terms of safety? And I got to recognize that Mexico is from a foreigner standpoint, we are very safe in Mexico. This is probably something that will impact more the local population as to how safety is handled. But do we see any changes coming that way?
Well, let's say that if we see the whole territory, we have some specific violence hotspots, which have become a very important problem. I think that Claudia Sheinbaum will be working on that, since it is one of the main requests on the side of the society. No, she's been talking about this. She's been trying to place the topic in terms of how she will be attending this in an integral way. So let's see how the cabinet is formed. Let's see which are the main signals of the new policies. She's been saying about a better way of analyzing crime. It's when we talk about the judicial changes, she has been insisting in the analysis that the Fiscalías, the Procuración de Justicia, the way this procurement is working in Mexico, trying to generate a better way of procurement and investigation. She's been talking about that. This will be very, very good for attending security, for attending safety of the citizens, of course, for attending violence. So we'll be very, we'll see that that Claudia Sheinbaum is putting this in the as one of her priorities. I think. Let's see how this works in terms of public budget. No, we'll see the public budget since the 8th of September. There will be some changes that we can analyze, and we'll see if the speech goes together with decisions regarding especially budgets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is going to be very interesting to have a female president. And I mean, there's definitely a problem of violence towards women in Mexico, and seeing how priorities change here. So I'm looking forward to seeing what changes. Now, there's a possible change in the United States too. We have two people running for president and a whole bunch of senators, congressmen. A change in Congress could probably have an equal impact on the relationship between both countries. But what do you see? I mean, the real question I want to ask is, if Trump is elected president, what will change versus Biden? So if you have that, but really, do you see the presidents working together differently now that, if Biden continues, he'll be working with Claudia. If Trump comes in, he'll be working with her. So I know there was some tension between the United States when AMLO was president, or continues to be president. I think there was a lot of that. Trump was there for a lot of that. What are we possibly looking at?
Well, we'll see during the campaigns. Mexico once again being at the heart of the United States election. The topics of migration or the fentanyl, as I was saying, have become very, very, very important for the Democrats and for the Republicans. So this will be part of the discussion. No, I don't know what they will be saying, but of course, it generates a lot of attention, the way to work with Mexico on behalf of these topics, which are part of the cultural discussion, the labor discussion, the health discussion, and of course, national security discussion. No, so Mexico is every day more part of American politics. So I think this is what we will see until we have the election in November, and I don't think there will be major differences if Biden or Trump wins. Well, they have different styles. No, Trump is like more acts in a harder way in his speech. No, Biden is different. No, it's more diplomatic, but they act the same. The United States see Mexico as a close actor. No, economics are very intertwined, as I was saying. So I think right now we have the opportunity, of course, if Trump or Biden wins, of thinking in a hemispherical way. I think we right now have different actors in the geopolitical scene. The rise of China is a very important, interesting, strategic situation that we should be thinking together. And of course, Mexico is an interesting part of this equation, no? Since we have a close intertwined in exports and imports, but also we have a very strong capacity of generating diplomatic consensus all around the world. We have strengths in those cultural, even religious capacities. No, well, this is a multi-diversity, multicultural capacities. Well, we are a very strategic associate to the United States. So I think this new election in the United States will open new discussions for strengthening our relationship. And I am thinking in a very positive way on the next years. It doesn't matter if Biden wins or Trump wins.
You know, you make a good point there that it is a style thing. I think Trump talks a big talk when it comes to the Mexicans are bad, and it doesn't help us as foreigners to have someone saying such negative things about Mexicans. But realistically, behind the scenes, they're looking at this as from an economic standpoint, and it's, will things be manufactured in Mexico or will they be manufactured in China? Both parties are probably thinking the same thing. They're favoring Mexico over China. So that's interesting. I hadn't really thought about it that way. It might be a little bit easier on the surface of things if Biden wins, because there'll be less animosity maybe between the people. But I want to wrap this up, and I want to thank you so much for your time here. I want to thank Actinver for helping make this happen. And I've got more videos up here on the screen, actually, between us here. There's going to be videos. There's one with Bernardo about the peso changes, and another one that is perfect just for you. Thank you so much for watching. Leave comments down below, and I'll catch you in the next video. Hasta luego.
Thank you, Brighton.